Okay, in this section, we're going to be talking about addition and subtraction of integers. And this textbook uses really weird notation for the negative sign. It, for some reason, use this, well, the dash, which is what we normally use, but they use it in like a raised fashion, so they put it up above. They're trying, and they even talk about in the textbook about trying to make a distinction between negative numbers and the operation of subtraction, but that really is not necessary because we all know that technically there is no such thing as subtraction, that we are just combining positive and negative numbers. We've talked about that a little bit before, but of course, whenever you're a small child, you have no choice but to try and take things away and understand that concept of removing, so many items and how many do you have left. But, as we grow older, then we should be able to understand that there really is no such thing. We have positive numbers, we have negative numbers, and we're just combining the two. Okay, so when we first started out, we started out by only using natural or counting numbers, and that was the set that started out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and went on forever. Um, so that's the very first set that children ever learn. It's what they learn with sitting there counting in front of Sesame Street or Dora the Explorer or whatever they're watching. Then as we get a little bit older, we add 0 to the set, and we call that the whole numbers. And you'll see our whole number set is the same as the naturals, but it just has 0 in it also. All right, so now then we're moving a little bit further ahead, and we're going to add the negative numbers into the set. Now this is called the set of integers. So integers is the positives and 0 along with the negatives. And the negative numbers, if you'll notice that they go in the opposite direction. You have 1 over here to the right, and then you have -1 over here to the left. You have 2, that is 2 away from 0 on the right, and then -2 is 2 away from 0 on the left. So these are opposites of each other. They're on the opposite side of 0, which is where we get the name, and we call them the opposites. Now, they're also called additive inverses because when you combine two opposite numbers, you end up getting 0. So, like for instance, if I were to say 5 and -5, we all know that to be 0. We've been doing that for years, right? Well, that's because we have 5 and its opposite, which is -5, and since they are the same distance away from 0, then they cancel each other out basically. That's what's called additive inverses. They're also additive inverses are what you do to get what we call the additive identity, which in addition, the identity is 0 because it's what you add to something and it doesn't change it. Okay, now we're going to talk about combining positive and negative numbers, and there are a couple of different ways. Well, there are a lot of different ways actually that you can combine positive and negative numbers, but we're going to talk basically about kind of two methods. And the first is looking at it with a number line. So I want to do that first, but I wanted you to see that what we're going to be doing is we're going to be doing 5 minus 7. Now, you might see it as 5 plus a -7, or especially in this textbook, they're going to use 5 plus and then the little raised -7, or 5 plus and then parentheses the -7, or just the normal 5 minus 7. These all mean the exact same thing. So I don't want you to get confused or fooled by it. But what we're going to do is we're going to look at this as number line. So for instance, let's say that I wanted to do 5 minus 7. Well, let's put 0 right here. 5 tells me to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That would be 5 in the positive direction, so that would be the number 5. Now the -7 tells me to go the opposite direction of 7. So instead of going 7 to the right, that means we're going to go 7 to the left, which would be the opposite of 7. So we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That makes 7 units to the left. Now where are we at? We're at -2. So we can always think about subtraction or combining positive and negative numbers by kind of picturing a number line. And even things that you've done millions of times before, like let's say we were going to do 5 minus 3. We all know that's 2. We've been doing that for years, right? Well, if we start out at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and we go in the opposite direction 3 units, that would be 1, 2, 3 units right here. And where does that put us at? That puts us at 2. So we can't, and teaching it using the number line is really good also, and especially in, having children to learn to visualize that, kind of, fostering those higher order thinking skills. Now, the other way to combine positive and negative numbers is just to focus on the rules. We have 2 rules that tell us exactly what to do when we're combining positive and negative numbers, or adding and subtracting, for lack of a better word. If the signs are the same, you add the numbers and keep the sign. So that's our number 1 rule. Now, we've done that over and over and over again. If I were to give you something like 5 plus 3, you would say, well, of course, that's 8. Well, sure it is. But the reason that it's 8 is because these numbers are both positive and we're combining them. So the signs are the same, so we add the numbers and we keep the sign positive. If we were to have -5 minus 3, or you might even see it as -5 plus a -3, either way they mean the same thing. These are the same sign, so you would combine the numbers and keep the sign. It's the same exact concept. Alright, now, so that's what you do if the signs are the same. If the signs are different, you subtract and keep the sign of the larger number. So, for instance, in what you have been doing all your life, to say something like 5 minus 3, well, you know that's 2. The reason is because 5 is a positive, 3 is a negative. When you combine those are different signs, so we would subtract and keep the sign of the larger number, which in this case happens to be positive. So our answer would be positive 2. If we happen to have -5 plus 3, we would do the same thing. Our signs are different, so we would subtract just the numbers. Just subtract them the easiest way you can. 5 minus 3 would be 2. But then keep the sign of the bigger number. 5 is bigger than 3, so the negative wins out. So our answer there would be -2. The last thing we need to talk about before working some problems is absolute value, that concept. An absolute value of a number literally means the distance from 0. So when you see something that looks like this absolute value, those bars on either side, that means absolute value. So the absolute value of 6, what that means is how far from 0 is 6. So of course that would be 6 units. Now, what if we had something like this? This again literally means how far from 0 is -6. And it's still 6 units away from 0. So your absolute value is always going to be a positive number, but that is because we're talking about distance from 0. So we're going to work some problems, and you're going to see some situations and different things that you can do with those.